pain behind the fame this time, the supermodel with a nose for trouble. The tragedy that haunts Joaquin. The sadness of a screen siren. And the rapper dogged by controversy. In 2005, Joaquin Phoenix won a Golden Globe and was nominated for an Oscar for his work as Johnny Cash in the biopic Walk the Line. It was the pinnacle of his career to date, but not the first time he had tasted success playing a troubled and talented misfit. In fact, his resume boasts several parts that make the most of his dark and brooding looks. There's his breakout role as Nicole Kidman's tormented would-be lover in Gus Van Sant's To Die For, and the sinister Commodus in Gladiator, which resulted in his first Oscar nomination. Add to this the cynical Ray in Buffalo Soldiers, and it begins to look as if there is some sort of pattern at work. The tormented artist is known for never watching his own screen performances. Joaquin has also been documented as smoking 4 packs of Camel cigarettes a day and checking into rehab to deal with alcohol abuse in 2005. But perhaps it's not so surprising. For on the night of Halloween 1993, it was Joaquin that called 911 to try and get help for his brother, the talented actor River, as he lay unconscious and dying from an overdose of heroin and cocaine outside the Viper Room, a Hollywood nightclub part-owned by Johnny Depp. The tragedy is something that Joaquin doesn't talk about publicly, even today. As the richest entertainer in the world, Oprah Winfrey's life may seem cushy now, but the queen of daytime talk knows just as much about pain and struggle as many of her downtrodden guests. She was born into a Mississippi Baptist family to unmarried teenaged parents. With her father away on duty in the army and her mother unable to care for her, baby Oprah lived in poverty with her grandmother Hattie Mae, who ran a tight ship, whacking her with a switch whenever she stepped out of line. But her troubles really began after she went to live with her mother in Wisconsin at the age of 6. 3 years later, she was raped by her cousin. Sometime after that, she was molested by a male friend and an associate of her uncle. She kept quiet about the abuse until many years later. After running away from home a number of times, she was sent to live with her father Vernon, who imposed strict rules in an attempt to curb her rebellious behavior. They weren't enough to prevent her from running riot, and at the age of 14, she fell pregnant. The baby died at birth, and perhaps that tragedy brought Oprah round to realizing that her success, rather than self-destruction, was the best way to get back at her abusers. She became an honors student and was voted most popular girl at school and joined the speech team. At the age of 18, she won a Miss Black Tennessee beauty pageant. The rest may be history, but Oprah has never forgotten the pain of her abuse. She recently initiated Oprah's Child Predator Watch List through her show and website to help track down accused child molesters. Within the first 48 hours, 2 of the featured men were captured. Jodie Foster is among the few who have made the successful transition from child to adult star. Now in her mid-40s with 2 Best Actress Oscars, a happy and stable home life, and a career she forges on her own terms, it's easy to forget that even Jodie Foster once went through an extremely traumatic period that threatened to take away everything she had ever worked for. While studying English literature at Yale University, she was stalked by John Hinckley Jr., an obsessed fan who had watched her movie Taxi Driver many times. He strongly identified with Travis Bickle, the unhinged character played by Robert De Niro.
I receive a great deal of unsolicited mail, but I seldom read it. I've never met, spoken to, or in any way associated with one John W. Hinckley. Last fall, I received several pieces of unsolicited correspondence signed John W. Hinckley or JWH, and I threw them all away. At the beginning of March, I received 3 or more 3 or 4 more notes similarly signed. And on March 6, 1981, I gave them to my college dean, who in turn gave them to the Yale police. These are now in the custody of the FBI.
When Jody didn't respond to Hinckley's letters, poems, and phone calls, he decided the only way to impress her was to become as famous as she was. In March 1980, he shot and seriously wounded President Ronald Reagan. Jody was called to testify at Hinckley's trial, and the resulting intense media glare inevitably took its toll, with her career nosediving into a 7-year slump. In 1988, she had to audition for the role of a rape victim in the Jonathan Kaplan film The Accused. It won her an Academy Award and heralded a string of successful appearances in films like The Silence of the Lambs, for which she won her second Oscar, Nell, Panic Room, and Inside Man. And after 40 years of doing it tough in her career and private life, she's ready to take it easy.
I've been working for 40 years, so I've kind of, I've been there, and I've loved every minute of it, and it's all been great. And there are times where you want to work more and times where you want to work less, times where you want to be more involved professionally. I had a company for many years, I produced movies, and then times where you want to sit back and say, you know what, I just want to act now.
Is that where you work?
I think so, yeah, I think so. I mean, I still want to direct films, and I'm involved with that. But I remember when I was a kid and I did 4 movies a year, and that's just not something I'm ever going to do again. Maybe when I'm in my 80s.
Coming up, Kate Moss. Kate Moss from Croydon may not have scored the best grades in school, but she went straight to the top of the class in modelling after being spotted by Storm model founder Sarah Dukas at an airport at the age of 14. A year later, she was starring as Lolita in a John Galliano catwalk show and appearing in The Face magazine. Since then, Kate's face has gone on to grace 300 magazine covers, winning her contracts to star in countless global advertising campaigns for the likes of Dior, Versace, Burberry, Louis Vuitton, Bulgari, and lingerie label Agent Provocateur.
Kate Moss has got something that no one else has got, and no one else can find it, and so that's why they use Kate, because she's the best at what she does.
But even as her star was rising in the 90s, Kate was causing controversy. First up, it was her weight. With her waif-like frame stretching to a mere 5'6", she contrasted sharply to the curvy Amazonian forms of Cindy Crawford and Naomi Campbell. The emphasis on her gaunt features in photographs prompted former US President Bill Clinton to speak out about the growing trend of heroin chic. Kate insisted she wasn't anorexic, but the paparazzi already had her pegged as a potential golden goose. Early on in her career, the British tabloids made claims that she habitually used cocaine. Kate dismissed them as ridiculous and successfully sued the Sunday Mirror for claiming she had slipped into a drug-induced coma in Spain. But in 1998, when she checked into a psychiatric center, no one was buying the story that she was merely suffering from exhaustion. While the paparazzi maintained that she was on the nasties, loyal friends were saying she was suffering from depression over her separation from longtime lover Johnny Depp, who was in the process of reinventing his image from philandering party boy to faithful family man. Kate later admitted to getting high and drinking champagne before hitting the catwalk, and her private life continued to fascinate the media. The paparazzi dogged her mercilessly throughout her 2002 pregnancy with Leela Grace, the daughter of Dazed and Confused editor Jefferson Hack. There was also plenty of speculation about the closeness of her relationship with Jude Law's ex Sadie Frost, who were allegedly carrying on a lesbian affair. Throughout it all, Kate continued to show up for work, impressing everyone with her professionalism.
Without a doubt, she's the best model I've ever worked with. All you really have to do is get the light right, and then she hears the shutter, and every time the shutter goes, she gives you another look. You don't have to ask for it, and then if you ask for something, she'll give you that too. So I'd say she is called a supermodel because actually she is the best supermodel around. She's the best at her job. She is the Schumacher of modeling, you know.
But when she fell in love with train-wreck musician Pete Doherty, telephoto lenses were tracking her every move, trembling with anticipation of her imminent downfall. The Baby Shambles frontman made no secret of his multiple addictions, and the pair were frequently photographed holding each other up at openings, awards, and nightclubs. The tightrope she'd been walking finally snapped in September 2005, when Kate was splashed across tabloid front pages, apparently sniffing cocaine at a Baby Shambles recording session. One witness to the incident alleged that she had snorted a whopping 5 lines in just 40 minutes. With the police out to question her over the photos, Kate skipped the country and the knives came out. She was dropped like a stone from contracts with Burberry, Chanel and H&M.
I know Kate may not specifically have chosen to be a role model, but the fact is that when she chooses to be the face of H&M or Burberry, those are labels which are appealing to a really young-ish group, under 35s, and by the very taking of the money, Kate is a role model for those labels, and especially H&M, which we all know is a really, really young label. And do we actually want everyone under 30 to think, oh yeah, smoking coke, having a chaser of, you know, Johnny Walker whiskey or beer or vodka, 55 cigarettes, is this the lifestyle that we really want to show people is cool? It's not cool.
It was the mother of all wake-up calls.
All her friends, all her associates, all her business people have been telling her for a long time, stop.
Whether or not all the sermonizing hit home, Kate apologized from her hideout in Paris, saying she would take the difficult yet necessary steps to resolve her issues. Her determination to make good impressed one Dior stablemate.
Well, first I'd like to say, as for Kate Moss, I understand that she's apologized and changing her life. And I think that that is the most important thing that's happened. So I think it's really terrific that someone makes a mistake, takes responsibility for it, and deals with it. And I, for one, have had to do this in public, and I think anyone who has to go through it in public can tell you it's a really difficult experience.
And with advertising contracts evaporating like rats leaving a sinking ship, she certainly found out who her friends were.
Kate Moss is my friend, and I stand behind her. It's not the first time this has happened in the world. I think everyone is like bantering her, and it's too much. It's like she hasn't killed anybody. She's a human being, and I think it's really like a vendetta. And she's, as my friend, and she's still my friend, I stand behind her and support her in her recovery.
Naomi Campbell, who's faced her own issues, wasn't the only one who stood by her. French actress Catherine Deneuve, her ex-boyfriend Johnny Depp, and designer Alexander McQueen all rallied round. Dior was one company that refused to join the deserting ranks, and within a year she was back in everyone's good books.
I think the thing is, though, this is a bit of a myth that, you know, everyone was turning their backs on Kate. No one was turning their backs on Kate. She didn't really lose out on anything. She's a great model. She's very good at what she does. And people haven't stopped using her. I mean, it doesn't matter to me at all.
Her phenomenal bounce back saw her income leap from £5 million a year before the scandal to £8 million the year after. Kate seemed to have cleaned up her act, but some believed she would never really get her life on track until she got shot of Pete, whose frequent court appearances for drug possession seemed to leave him unrepentant. However, he reluctantly agreed to clean up his act when Kate issued him an ultimatum.
It wasn't exactly voluntary in a way, yeah. It was like, well, yeah, give up heroin or you can't be near my daughter. Which is fair enough. It was like, yeah.
Despite the subsequent relapses and breakups, Kate continued to take him back, and the pair announced their engagement in 2007. The marriage was abandoned after Pete was seen falling out of a nightclub with a South African brunette named Lindy, and Kate threw him out of her home in London. But was that the end to the sorry saga? Coming up, Paul Robeson. By anyone's standards, Paul Robeson was a remarkable man. A gifted athlete, at university he earned 15 varsity letters in various sports. He was described by a football coach as the greatest to ever trot the gridiron. He won an academic scholarship to Rutgers University and gained a law degree from Columbia. He spoke more than 20 languages, and when he entered show business, his list of impressive achievements only grew. With him in the title role, the 1940s production of Othello set a new record for the longest-running Shakespeare production on Broadway, a record that still stands. He had a beautiful and powerful bass voice, shown off to its most memorable effect when he sang Old Man River in the 1936 film version of Showboat. As a writer and globally influential civil rights activist, he won many awards, including the Spingarn Medal. But none of this meant anything when the US government decided he was a persona non grata and blacklisted him, even going so far as to revoke his passport between 1950 and 1958. The reason? His willingness while traveling abroad to denounce the US treatment of African Americans, and his enthusiastic embracing of all things Soviet Russia, particularly the policies of Joseph Stalin. His communist sympathies meant he spent over 30 years under surveillance by the FBI, from 1941 to 1974. He was also, unsurprisingly, called before the House Committee on Un-American Activities in 1956, after refusing to sign an affidavit affirming that he was not a communist, while reminding the committee that the Communist Party was a legal entity. While lauded around the world, particularly in England where he performed in films and on the stage from the 1920s onward, in the US he was more and more ostracized. Banned from appearing on former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt's television show in 1950 by NBC, he then suffered the ignominy of having all his films and recordings withdrawn from circulation, even Showboat. In 1961, he slashed his wrists in a Moscow hotel room, an action his son believes was prompted by an hallucinogenic given to him by US intelligence agents. He was then forced to undergo over 50 electroshock treatments by psychiatrists, who later turned out to be CIA contractors. He died of a stroke in 1976, having never completely recovered from the experience. When it comes to formidable female screen images, the dames from the 30s and 40s were pretty hard to beat. With their shoulder pads, severe hairstyles, and lipstick-slashed mouths, they were a match for even their toughest male counterparts, like Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney, and Edward G. Robinson.
Take it off the E string, play it on the G string.
One of the most intimidating was Barbara Stanwyck, whose long Hollywood career saw her take on a number of defining roles in films like Double Indemnity, The Lady Eve, and Walk on the Wild Side. But when it came to conjuring up the nerves of steel required for those sorts of femme fatales, Barbara had a deep well of personal experience to draw from. She was born Ruby Catherine Stevens in 1907 and raised in Brooklyn, because that's where her father Byron ran to the first time he abandoned her mother Catherine and their children. Then, when she was just 3 years old, her mother, who was pregnant again, was pushed off a tram by a drunk and killed.
Did you steal it?
Instead of looking after his children, Byron effectively made them complete orphans by deserting them and disappearing to the Panama Canal Zone. Barbara and her younger brother Malcolm were left with various neighbors, receiving little affection or security, until eventually the eldest sister, Maud, took Malcolm, but not Barbara. A boy is less trouble to look after, she explained.
Let them find me.
Steeling herself against the rejection and abandonment, Barbara accompanied another sister who worked as a showgirl, helping out backstage before taking full-time work from the age of 13.
Right through here. When it does, you just follow me. You run with all your
At 15, she was hired as a dancer, and her entry into show business was sealed with her appearance in the hit play The Noose in 1926. Her rave reviews for that and another show, Burlesque, led to her new name, Barbara Stanwyck, and a Hollywood screen test for her first film, Broadway Nights.
Be a good girl, huh? I'll be rooting for you.
She played a small role as a fan dancer, having lost out on the lead when she was unable to cry during the screen test. It was one of the many acting skills she would perform with ease in later years, but at that time in her life, she simply had no tears available. Maybe she'd learned from the earlier stage that they would get her nowhere. Sheer grit was what she needed, and that's what she had, in abundance. Hip-hop superstar Snoop Dogg is an aficionado of both meanings of the word rap. Since hitting it big with Doggy Style in 1993, he's racked up almost as many court appearances as he has stage shows. Even while recording his breakthrough debut album, he was arrested in connection with the death of a rival gang member. Snoop's tough lyrics and languid singing style helped define the gangster rap movement, along with his womanizing and public pot smoking. But in 2002, he seemed to be turning over a new leaf.
I just didn't want to get high in public no more, you know. The same way I wanted to, I didn't want to, you know what I'm saying? It's just simple as that. You know, taking some steps for myself as far as the way people look at me and perceive me. So the way I'm out there in public sometimes gives off a bad vibe, you know, so I want to just change all of that.
However, his new career as a positive role model was short-lived. In May 2005, at a concert in Washington, a fan was allegedly beaten unconscious by security guards as Snoop and The Game looked on. The next year, he and his entourage smashed up a duty-free shop at Heathrow Airport. He was cautioned for a fray and denied access to the UK for the foreseeable future. But that didn't put him off airports. A few months later, he was found carrying a police baton by airport security in California. The following month, he was arrested at Bob Hope Airport for parking in a passenger loading zone and being found in possession of marijuana and a firearm. He pleaded no contest and once again promised to be good.
He knows that he will go to state prison, no ifs, ands, or buts, if he violates probation. It's very, very important.
But with all that pot playing havoc with his short-term memory, he promptly appeared to have forgotten his promise when he was arrested in March just 1 year later for reeking of marijuana in Stockholm.
Three, two, one.